Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Monday morning. You guessed it. Grumpy's here with the coffee. I'm here, and Mr. Dingus is here, but today he is only Mateusz, which is kind of disappointing to your fans across the world. What's up, man?
I love how the video is playing. Obviously, the people can't see behind the scenes, but behind the scenes, we're both here just like rubbing our eyes, stretching out, just have no idea if we're ready to do any of this. But we're here, and good morning to all.
Good morning to all. See, I have an excuse for rubbing my eyes. I've been actually up for a while, but I had made the mistake of freaking like doing a little bit. We were talking with actually Alan this morning on Facebook, and I was like, you know what? Before it gets hot, let me get out there and do some stuff in the garden. And yeah, that
Wow.
was like a really bad move in terms of allergies. So yeah, if the eyes are a bit more red than normal, it's not for reasons you think. And it's more because of these goddamn allergies. But Sparky's with us as well. Good morning. Sparky has to be happy that Everton survived at the end. I think he's like one of the few ones I know that was kind of like rooting for it. Brian says all rain here. There's not going to be any freaking rain over here for a week, looks like there,
It's gonna be hot.
Mateusz. But I know you must be watching the weather like a hawk because Mr. and Mrs. Dingus will be official soon. When is Michelle becoming Mrs. Dingus?
We've got 26 days.
Not that anybody is counting. Okay, so you're not checking the weather yet then. That's probably
No, I mean also we're going to Punta Cana, so I mean the weather there is going to be just fine.
destination wedding is a
Yes.
smart move by
Yes.
you. Yes.
Thank you.
Good move.
Wow,
Good
that's the
move.
first time you've ever said anything about me being smart.
Well, I mean, the opportunity doesn't come up very often.
We got it, and we have to give the credit to Michelle, so I couldn't even come up with that idea. So here we are, still dumb.
Yes, good job by Michelle there. Okay, so a couple of things to get to. So first of all, let's start this because we're gonna be using this night and day over here coming up. You announced it yesterday. The silly season is here. It actually, the funny thing is, it probably has, based on how the season has gone, it's been here probably for the last couple of weeks. But
Since January.
from now
Really.
on, Tony actually made this for us last year, but really didn't get a chance to use it a lot. But from now on, we will be
Ooh.
using this to determine that red can go anywhere. So every time we get one of these rumors, we'll throw this out there and we'll go anywhere from very likely to not bloody likely and call it the real deal or bullshit. So anytime a rumor comes up, we're gonna plus that red dial where we want it to go. There's gonna be a lot of not bloody likelies on the right hand side or bullshit calls all the way at the end, I think, but it should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to use it. I know that you like you mentioned we had it last year for a little bit, but didn't really use it to its full potential like we should. So if anyone's going to be watching, any of the fantasy shows next year, go like straight to bullshit. We tend not to be the real deal. I'm still pretty salty. It's okay. It's fine.
Oh, yes, actually, we should bring that up. Not that you're being salty, but we should bring it up anyway to rub more salt in the wound, if you will. The fantasy season is, well, my fantasy season was over approximately 3 months ago. But the fantasy season is over. Our friend Matush over here, one of the big fantasy nerds, along with Gally over here, who Gally is awake or he never went to bed. I don't know which one it is. But so with Gally, the other part of the fantasy nerd makes it to the final and loses it to the nerd, the very nerd himself, BJ, the stat nerd.
You know what? I wouldn't have wanted to lose to anyone else. That was the one person I was completely comfortable losing to, and it's so be it. It was written like by Hollywood. It's fine. Everything's fine. Underdog story. We all love them, right? I'm not.
Yes, actually, I
upset.
thought it was amazing. It shows that, if you really put your mind to it, instead of having Cancelo start in your starting 11, you can actually make a team that's going to take the biggest nerds of them all when it comes to fantasy. But
And he
yeah,
did.
great job.
He did listen to us, so I think we get a little credit. Maybe Gally more so than me.
Maybe,
but
yeah, Gally should get the credit. But then again, Gally wasn't in the final either. So, but yeah, that was fun overall. And I think, yeah, it definitely shows that your guys' show gives some pretty good darn tips in terms of like creating the lineup. I think the problem is sometimes you guys don't follow your own tips and second guess yourselves and then the people who follow would come in and beat you up on.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, congratulations to BJ, who will be joining us shortly, definitely for the new season. Because I know the trivia part is desperately missing his involvement over here. I'm running out of questions. A couple of things to get to. So the weekend. Let's talk about the weekends overall. This man watching this. So this is like a really weird experience. Watching. I like Dortmund's. Not a big fan of Bayern ever since, as a kid. I've always liked Dortmund's. Probably goes more to the underdog story. But even though you would think as a kid you would more root for the guy who always wins. But hey, Brian Sheldon says, is this reward double trivia?
Ooh, that
will also be double jeopardy and double punishment on Galley and Bickler, which hey, I'm all for. So yeah, we might do that actually. Ask 2 questions. But so this Borussia Dortmund thing, dude, I could literally feel the pain of fans in Dortmund. That is a horrible, horrible way to go out.
Yeah, so I was going into work, and I was catching the end of it, and then I must be a really sad person because I went back and rewatched the end and all the emotional scenes that came afterwards, because that was just so tough to sit through. And then all of a sudden you get the news that Bayern sack Oliver Kahn and Salihamidzic. I usually am not that bad when it comes to that. So it was just a really weird, really weird experience. I mean, I tend to be pretty good at my pronunciations. For some reason, that's one name I've actually never tried to say before, because I don't really care about Bayern or anything. So that's probably why. But yeah, it was like a, hey, thank you, okay, fuck you, bye kind of thing. And I was like, that's so weird. You go out, you win, and then you sack 2 of the most important people in the higher ups. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah,
pretty much saying like we didn't deserve this anyway. Like Dortmund literally gave it to us.
I guess, yeah, and they did, right? I mean, they for all things considered, they should have gone out and won the game where they were at in the table, where Mainz were at in the table. The quality of players, they should have put that away. And unfortunately, stuff like this happens. We know it too well. So, hopefully 1 year we'll see Bayern not win it, and it might be an exciting time. But, as much as we like to joke about that, City have only lost 1 title in the last, 6-7 years. So I don't want to joke too much, because we might be headed in the same direction.
Yeah, sadly, right? I mean, it's not looking that hot, but better than Arteta, I guess. So we'll get to that. We'll get to the Premier League. I just felt like, watching that. I mean, we've lost some titles in the last day, but it was always like with one eye on another game, because it relied on somebody losing points or something like that. I've been in this situation, it was like a long time ago. It's probably like almost 15 years ago or so, for like Fenerbahce, where they had to win the last game and they were not able to. But it's harsh when you have this team. And where was even like, I don't think they're that high in the rankings. Like,
they were 8th or 9th, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're 9th. They finished the season as 9th. So you have this home game, and all you need is a win. And you think it's just the pressure? I mean, obviously not having Bellingham start. Probably, I mean, obviously, he was like the Bundesliga player of the season and stuff. Yeah. I mean, obviously those things affected, but it has to be the pressure of, and is it like compounded more because they have a similar situation where it's not like, I don't know, we won it 2 years ago, we won it 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. But this is like, almost feels like in the world of Bundesliga, once in a lifetime opportunity kind of an ordeal. You think that's the pressure that gets to them? I turned it on when it was 2-0, so I did not see the beginning of the game and how it started and stuff. But you would think it has to be part of the reason.
Yeah, and the pressure, along with playing a team who really wanted to come out and play. Mainz could have just sat back and not done anything and been like, all right, you know what, Dortmund's going to win the title. Finally we're away from Bayern's reign. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're still professional footballers. We still want to win this game. And I think people forget that. I know sometimes, some teams, the joke is that you go on holiday, you're off at the beach, like Southampton, Liverpool, everyone was pretty much off at the beach. But they're still professional footballers at the end of the day, and I know what it's like to be really competitive, and I know what it's like to not want to lose. And then you could be part of the lore of, yeah, we're the team that took down Dortmund last game of the season, and because of us, Bayern has now won 27 straight or whatever it is in the future. It's one of those things where I think ultimately there was a big sense of pressure, a lack of understanding that the opponent will show up, a lack of just kind of understanding who they were. When things started to go poorly, they really went poorly, and I don't think they really had the resolve to turn it around from there. You could see like Emre Can's face after the second goal went in. He was he looked like he was done, and it was still only the first half. Like there was plenty of time left, but you could tell by the body language once that second goal went in, they thought they're like, it's not worth it. What's the point? It's what it looked like on their faces. So unfortunately, I think if Jude was healthy, obviously you could say this about anything. I think it'd be a different story, and I think he'd be celebrating a Bundesliga on his way to Madrid. But unfortunately now, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, it was definitely like literally, and we were talking about it. So I think there was like 4 or 5 of us following it on Discord, like watching the games and like kind of following both games and stuff. And man, it was odd because you could literally feel the pain of like the entire like stadium. It was very nervy. And first of all, then Köln scores that goal, so they're like, the stadium's mood totally changed. And when it became 2-1, you were like, hey, you never know, here it goes and stuff. I really wanted to be 2-2 earlier so you could have even more suspense and stuff. But yeah, it was like, man, it was like heartbreaking to watch. It really was, as you watched it. And I honestly did not want to. I switched to the Bayern game because I was like, this means more now because these guys are not going to score 2 in the last like 4 minutes. And yeah, honestly, I had to switch to the other side, maybe the torture side of me. I'd rather see Dortmund's reaction than Bayern's like celebration reaction, because it literally like just fell on their lap, it felt like. So I think, Sparky says it's like Kazi's pain watching Everton win. Yes, and then so you get that disappointment, then we go to the Premier League, you get that disappointment, and it really felt weird to watch with like nothing to watch this last game. I know that lineup came up. We talked about it on Friday. I really thought there'd be more starters just out of the, I don't know, like the professionalism of the overall thing. And we would have a lot of sprinkled around. It was kind of like the other way around where there were more starters sprinkled around. And I know Megan was yelling at me because I was trying to get some lessons out of the game. Because that's how I've been watching the last 2 months, really. It's been more like watching it like preseason, seeing where we can go from here, who can fit these pieces and stuff like that. What did you make of that game, first of all? Let's start with our game. 4-4. It was one of those, are you not entertained? Things. It was goals, but
so weird. And I don't know. It doesn't feel good saying that they conceded 4 to Southampton. I know that it essentially didn't matter, but there's still a sort of sense of pride to take. Southampton's only scored 4 one other time this season, I think it was, and it was definitely not against a top side, if I remember correctly. So the game overall was just really weird. And it was one of those things, like you were saying, you're trying to learn some things from it, but because it was so odd, it was one of those things where you couldn't learn anything from it because there wasn't enough information that we could get out of it. The only thing that you could really get out of it was that Kelleher was really bad, actually.
Yeah,
like a lot worse than what we would ever expect. We expect him to get some pretty nice offers to start at a club because he is forever going to be as a legend for club.
Dude, I'm not gonna help
for the cup for cup games. I'm so sorry. This is fun. Forever a legend for.
I'd rather just
for the
sit here
cup
and
runs.
enjoy the torture as you struggle.
Yeah, no, I know who you are. This is just one of those times. It's one of those times. But yeah, his positioning was really bad. His reactions were really slow. It just, I don't know. it seemed like I possibly could understand. He's like, fuck this, I haven't played the whole year. He expects me to come out and be as amazing as I can be. Like I'm not, like, my head's not in it, kind of thing. And I could get that. But yeah, overall, just a very weird game.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell nobody's focus was there. I mean, the same thing for Southampton. I felt like they had a bit more to play for because they're at least the home team. And, I find it pretty impressive that, that stadium is still full, like supporting the team and stuff like that, knowing it's their last like home, like Premier League game and stuff like that. So like give their respects to their players like Prowse and stuff. So that I thought that was like really nice to see and very like classy to see. Because I can't see that happening in like the Turkish league, for example. People would be there just to cuss people out, not to support the team is where it would be. But Sparky says they were all ready for the holiday, and Klopp was checking to see how bad our backup players are. But I feel like it's very unfair when you make a back four that's never played together in ages, and then expect them to function as a unit, and then pick people in there to say, well, they're the problem. Because what do we learn from that? I don't think like watching the game, that specific game, there is not much to learn because you can't blame. I'm disappointed in like Gomez, for example, because I feel like he still fits this new system very well as well. And you could see his speed and stuff like that where it would come in handy. But, Gomez and Matip together, you just knew that backline was not going to be organized because I don't know who was going to take charge to yank people around. Costas on the left, I still think, especially if we're going to run into an issue with like homegrown players, he is the one to sacrifice. And I still think he should be the easiest one to sacrifice. And we can even, basically, we would not lose anything, might even gain something. Because I still think he's another piece that when we brought Curtis back in the day, or when we bring like a young kid up, they would look very good. But it was because the rest of the team around them was clicking so well. We could have shown up over there and not look too bad. I feel like you can kind of see this season his delivery from the left-hand side, which was his specialty, which is what he brought, has been way off. And he's too physically weak and not fast enough, it feels like, to fill in that gap. So I feel like he's the one that we should probably sacrifice. I think we were talking about this on one of the Friday morning shows with Kazi and Alex, in terms of bringing somebody in that's bring somebody like Ramsey in to play that position, or heck, gets that dude from Southampton or somebody who can play right back, left back. The name escapes me now.
Walker Peters.
Yes. Who?
Kyle Walker Peters.
Yes. I mean, somebody like that who can do both, maybe. I think that would be like an ideal move in the Southampton. So it's, written in the books already. Why not do it and stuff like that? But it was good to see Bobby get his goal. And it looked like, you get 1-0, 2-0, like, oh, this is going to get out of control. Like literally lean back and just kick back and just enjoy it. But that
lean back
line, it just went south really fast. Just horrible defending throughout. Just horrible defending.
Yeah.
You saw Trent jacking up the line again in Prowse's goal. It was just so do you take anything away from that game at all?
No, except just seeing Bobby score in the final game. It was really nice. I don't remember. Do we remember who assisted him?
The last goal, I think it was Fab.
Was it Fab? Okay.
I think it was Fab that kind of drove into the box.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. Yes.
I still don't think he does that juke on purpose.
Firmino?
Yes. I don't think he can kick it initially and then it ends up throwing two guys on the ground.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he did it on purpose. But anyway.
Happy mistakes.
Premier League ends. And I guess he saved his butts literally by not getting a Solanke tattoo because he did not score a goal to keep Everton down. But what do you make of that? Leicester goes down, Leeds goes down, and I really felt like Leeds would have had a shot at beating. I guess it would not matter anyway if they beat Tottenham, but they go out. I mean, you look at some of the records of the. I mean, Leeds lost the last 4 out of 5, and I think that's a lot of mismanagement along the season in terms of hirings and firings and stuff like that. where they were not able to like save them. But Leicester, Leeds, Southampton go out. Do you pick one over there and be like, man, they didn't deserve to?
I feel like if we're gonna base it on quality of the side, I think Leicester had every opportunity to stay up, and I think everything that just went wrong this year went wrong for them, kind of thing. Uh, the very interesting thing is if Wout Fast doesn't have those 2 own goals against us, back in December or whatever it was, January, then Everton go down and Leicester stay up, and Kazi would be the happiest person in the world. But it's one of those things. Two freak own goals have dropped them to the championship, essentially. I know there's so much more that happened this season that you could say this was the point. But it really comes down to just 2 freak own goals.
He did score a goal yesterday, though, to make up for
it. He did. Yeah, I was going to say he did have another one. So,
yeah, I mean, Sparky Parker says if you finish in the bottom 3, you deserve it. And I guess, yeah, I mean, in terms of, I guess this is the beauty of the system right here is you are what the standings show in some ways when it's at the end of 38 games. But I think I agree that it's, in terms of who we're probably the most disappointed and shocked by, I would say it's probably Leicester City as well, because it felt like they had so many good pieces to even not be in this position. First of all, you think they kind of made the manager change too late? That's what caused it. They kind of figured Brendan would eventually get it sorted out.
Yeah, I think so. Because we talked about it almost every other week, whether it was here, whether it was on a different show, that is this the week that Brendan gets fired? It's like you can't have that question for so many months of the league. Because everything it doesn't make sense then, because then you're always questioning every single match that they're going into. So why even have that doubt? Why have that question mark whatsoever? Whereas on the flip side, for a club like Leeds, I think the Leeds board, they thought that they had made that team better than it was, and they didn't need Bielsa. I think Bielsa made that team as good as it could have been, and I think they really, really did not find a good backup plan to have someone else when they let him go, to have Marsh come in and take care of that team. So I think like those are 2 opposite things, where one should have held on, and the other shouldn't have stayed as long. And I think, and that's the interesting thing is if you flip those two coins and do that differently, both those teams might be staying up, and then Everton and Bournemouth might be going down, kind of thing. So it's interesting.
You think the Jesse experiment kind of like backfired, or did they? Because it felt like you had Bielsa, and when you have a manager like that who comes with so much, I don't know, like not only experience but like the character, the charisma, and kind of like they take charge, right? Like you don't get Bielsa and be like, you don't hire Bielsa and say like, here are the players that we're giving you. Bielsa tells you which players.
These are the players I want.
Yeah. So you build that team, and I mean, it was like, I would consider it successful. Obviously, they got promoted, and they had like a couple of like they had a good season, and you could see how they played and how they would play. And yeah, it sometimes would backfire just because of this is how we go about it kind of thing. Then you change managers, so like not completely different, but definitely different style. And then let him bring a bunch of his own guys in there. And it just felt like the old guys and the new guys never gelled. And then you change that manager, at least right off that I think removing him was not a good move. And I know we talked about this, I think it was last Monday or 2 Mondays ago, where you kind of last ditch effort, you try to get like the new manager smell, get you some points to stay up. But I just think, they totally went the wrong way. Brian says Harvey Barnes will be gone in a matter of weeks. I think that team,
several players,
a lot of players that will be gone. I mean, I know Soyuncu is going to Atletico Madrid or whatever.
That one's just weird, isn't it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
It was like one of those. Atletico Madrid does this where they get some weird Turkish players. They got Arda back in the day and stuff. I mean, he was really good. He went down really hard, for example. That's including the Turkish national team. I think his form really dipped. Mm-hmm. But I think that team was in so much shambles in midfield that I think that defense got too much pounded on them. You know, when we watch these different teams and you don't watch every game, when they're leaking in goals, you're like, oh, they're defending. But, you know, we know from our own freaking team that you can have the best back line. If there's midfield is non existent, it's not, it doesn't matter. And I think that was the problem with Leicester too. So, I mean, Barnes will go,
I
Madison.
think Barnes, Madison, Vardy. Not that Vardy's going to go to, you know, have a bigger or have a to go to a bigger club. It's just that he might want to have. He might not want to be in the championship kind of thing. You know, he might be one of the guys like, you know, I'm going to go to the MLS kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Something like that. I think Tielemans goes. I think Castagna goes. I think Johnny Evans might go. There's a lot of pieces on that team that I think are good enough to compete at a higher level and who would want to compete at a higher level as well.
So you're almost like put the doom scenario that we kind of put on Everton before too. Like
I think it's going to fire sale.
They're going to keep going down. I mean, not necessarily go down, but they're not coming right back.
Yeah,
up.
they're not.
Southampton might.
I don't think any of these clubs that go down are coming back up next year. That is my
that's a good question.
That is my statement.
Okay, so you're saying neither of these three will be back.
I think two could qualify for the playoffs, but neither will get promoted.
Ooh, gotta have to clip this one. That's like a
good
prediction. Yes, we'll do. I say Southampton might come back. Even though you look at this, you're like, what the hell? They were by far the worst. But they have a lot of, I feel like, young pieces that can make them good. Shelton says Leeds. So this is going to be interesting to watch. Because I feel like Leeds will lose a lot of players as well. Will the Americans stay there, for example?
Well, McKennie's gone because he has to, you know, and they don't want him because he was absolute dog shit for him this year. I think Tyler Adams is too good to play in the championship, so I think he will go elsewhere. I think Aronson might like a move back to Austria. I don't know. He had some glimpses where he was pretty good, and like I did like watching him, but then overall he just wasn't really that great. And I think Rodrigo would definitely deserve to play elsewhere as well.
Yeah, true.
And then you have Melier, who's probably going to be playing elsewhere. Luke Ayling could do a proper shift, I think, for like a mid-table side. I really think Luke Ayling's pretty good. And so I think you can look at that there. And so I think with Brian saying Leeds is the most likely, I don't disagree. I think it depends on how fire sale-y Leicester and Leeds are to really determine which one has the best opportunity to come back.
Yeah, I think that depends on the players a lot, doesn't it? Like who's willing to see. Like I can see a guy like Chris Ayling saying, you know what? No, I'm going to stay with Leeds. This is my club, kind of a deal. I honestly cannot think of that many names for Leicester. I can think of some names for Southampton, but I can't think of. I feel like Leeds have a solid core of young talent, says Gally. With 49ers money coming in, they have the best shots. Yeah, I mean, I still say Southampton just because of the young talent. I guess because we're assuming all these guys lose their top layer of players taken off the top over here, going to the Premier League or elsewhere. With what remains, I feel like Southampton has a good shot with the young talent they have. But there are a lot of good teams in the Championship too that will compete for that. So that's going to be interesting to see. So, okay, well, you're looking at these teams, and obviously they're a big disappointment. But give me your biggest disappointment, aside from us, obviously, for this season in the Premier League. Which club do you pick?
It has to be Chelsea. I don't think anyone can pick any other team. I think the amount of money that was spent, the expectations, everything that was hyped up, it to finish. You know, when they show you the Premier League standings and they first show you 1 through 10 and then 11 through 20, to not be on that first page.
Yeah.
After spending $500 million is damning. It is absolutely atrocious. I think the players should be absolutely ashamed in themselves. I understand that there were a lot of managerial changes. God damn it. But
it's a tough morning this morning.
At the end of the day, these players are good enough to be top 10 in this league. and they have to be disappointed in themselves. And it's just, I would not want to be a Chelsea fan right now, because it's just, I understand Pochettino coming in could be a little exciting, but it's still very difficult to see what's going to happen and who's going to stay, because who knows? They might have a specific fire sale of their own in a way. So I think that would be my biggest disappointment.
Yeah, would they go out and spend even more? And obviously, off of the money they make of the guys they sell, they definitely have a surplus of people. So they'll be selling those and getting them. I think more than that. And then Pochettino, did get the 2-year contract. I think how much say will Pochettino have? I feel like that is an ownership that is too much, hands-on operation going there. We talked about this before, so I don't know if he's going to be able to do his own thing, and he should be able to, man, because otherwise it's just going to be a hot mess. We're going to do like before the season, we did a Premier League show where we went team by team, us, Gally, Beckler, and myself, and we did predictions. And I would think most of us, I can't remember, we're going to, play those and then come up and see where they ended, which might be the end of that show altogether, seeing how our predictions came about anyway.
Speaking of which, if you'd like me to, I have the Discord with our channel, the Prediction Zone channel.
I thought I deleted that.
No, it's still on there. Oh, Tim. Your top 4 is Liverpool, City, Spurs, Chelsea.
Relegated. Fair, that sounded pretty darn good at the time.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, all of this is going to sound good because it all makes sense. But just wait until I keep going, though. Just wait.
Okay.
So relegated, we have Bournemouth, Forest, Fulham, 0-3. Golden Boot, Holland. That was pretty nice. Golden Glove, Alisson, which, it wasn't terrible. Best signing, Nunez. So that's a question. Who would you say was the best signing in the Premier League then? This might be, a whole video on itself, but just kind of off the top of your head, is there someone that you would consider as the best signing in the entire
Holland,
Premier League?
Obviously, goes without saying, right?
I guess, yeah. I didn't know if there was anything. Because
I have to give some thought in terms of like who else. Let's see. I think like the top one is like guaranteed. So it's almost like we're looking for a runner-up.
Yeah.
So we need a runner-up. I think Holland is no like conversation. He's like top one. We're probably looking for a runner-up. I'll have to think about that and get back to you, because that is a lot to kind of like go through. I'm like looking through the standings of like who made an impact. Do you throw a guy like Isaac in there?
No, because Newcastle was clicking without him,
I guess, before him, right? Yeah, I'm trying to see like who made the biggest impact. Really, you can do a lot more with managers than you can do with players. It feels like.
Gally,
I'll have to get to. I think Holland is like an easy winner for everyone.
The Keylor Navas in January is pretty good.
Yes, I think that's like probably if we did the January. Navas and Gakpo would probably make a run for that too, right?
Yeah.
Like signings over like the World Cup break over deal. But yeah, for the season, that's a tough one. We'll have to look into that. But what are your predictions, by the way, since you trashed
We're
mine?
still getting, hold on. Biggest flop. Okay. Biggest flop, Lisandro Martinez.
As what, the flop?
Biggest flop of the
which that
flop
was
signing,
right?
He was
midget center back thing.
He was decent, I guess. Manager of the year.
Shut up. We have to do this.
Antonio Conte.
Where is the dump button?
Manager of the year, Antonio Conte. First to be fired, Brendan Rodgers, and player of the year, Mo. So altogether, not too bad.
A little bit of a homerish picks in there, I realize, but yeah, way off on a couple of things. But
oh boy. Okay, mine not great.
All right,
top 4: Liverpool, City, Spurs, Arsenal. So I had 3 of the top 4. I mean, never mind. Liverpool's on the top 4. 3 of the top 5. God damn it.
You don't have math, that's for sure.
Relegated, I had Bournemouth, Fulham, and Southampton. So
one. There you go.
Golden Boot, I put Gabriel Jesus because I really didn't want Holland to do as well as I knew he was going to do well, but I didn't want him to. So I just put Jesus because I remember that. Golden Glove, Alisson. Best signing, Brendan Aronson.
The one that you just slammed like 10 minutes ago.
First, a couple games, he was pretty good. Biggest flop signing, Calvin Phillips, and in parentheses, just don't know how much he'll contribute there. That was pretty spot on.
That was pretty spot on.
Manager of the year, Klopp. First sacked, I put Brendan Rodgers / Scott Parker. Was Scott Parker the first one? I don't remember.
Scott Parker might have been the first one. I know Gally was celebrating. He'll know. He probably has it on his calendar, like so he celebrates annually. But
and then Trent was my player of the year. So
yeah, I mean, okay. So let me defend one of those picks over there, and let me ask you this: if instead of sacking him at the time, they kept Conte and said, "You know what? You are right. Actually, do what you got to do." You think Tottenham would have ended up better? I mean, I guess it could have ended up worse. But do you think they would be at least in the run for the top 5?
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think instead of saying, "What? How dare you?" I mean, I know that was like more like a resignation press conference, but still, instead of saying, "You know what? Sad but true. We got to make some changes," and gone with it. I don't know if Conte is a guy that you want to pack your suitcases with, but still, if they went with him and they gave him the authority to say, "Yeah, if you got to bench some of these guys, you do you. You have till the end of the season." I think they would have ended a lot better off than they did.
I agree. Yeah. And because he was, I mean, clearly we saw what happened. He was right. There was a lack of talent at the club. There was a lack of a belief at the club. And he was there doing his best that he could with the pieces he had. And I think he could have continued to still at least get them into a European spot, like top 7, I think would have been no question about it. And so with that part of it, I was actually a little shocked to see that Spurs had the second longest running streak of being in Europe that was broken. So now, yeah, so they have been in Europe since what was it? For the first time in 13 years. So aside from City, they were the only club that had a run for that long. Which, when you think about the consistency, it's almost amazing how much they haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's sad, right? Like you're like, just not the very top.
Like, yeah, we're always just right here. The cream is up here. We're just under the cream always. It's fine.
Yeah, that's almost like more depressing probably for Spurs fans than anything else, to be good, but just not very good.
And depressing for Harry Kane too. We talked about this before the show. If in case you guys didn't know, he scored 30 goals in the Premier League this season. Like it went so under the radar because of everything else that was going on. But this is the second time that he scored 30 goals in a 38-game league season, and both times he was second place to the record breaker at the time. So in 17-18 to Mo, and to 22-23 to Haaland. And it's just, he's the only Premier League player to ever score 30 goals in 2 38-game campaigns. And both times, it meant absolutely nothing.
I think that's why he should stay at
Tottenham. That's Tottenham. That's Tottenham in a nutshell.
It's Mr. Spurs. Like, he should represent and stay there. It would be actually scary. I would be extremely worried if he did go to United. Because he does this, I feel like, in that team. He could be, I mean, you take Weghorst out of there and you put Harry Kane in there. That's pretty scary and worrisome. Sparky says, still hate Kane. Yeah, I'm not a fan of him with a big head, but you got to kind of like still admire what he does on the pitch. And I think he, in terms of like creating, he also creates. He's not a guy that just like, poaches goals either. Like, he drops back, and his passing when he drops back and stuff are key to starting those corners with Son and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that they would want to have him on their team.
You hate that face? You hate that face?
I hate the face. The stats underneath are probably going to be better.
How can you not hate the face?
Oh man, let's see. So before we go, let's do this, I guess. Give me your biggest surprise. Based on your list, you would think Arsenal, you had at least a huge improvement. You put them in the top 4. Yeah, I had Tottenham and Chelsea, man, because I really thought Conte would, and to be
I don't
fair,
think
he
you were.
had them
Yeah,
up there, and then it just it just fell apart big time.
I
And
think you had
Chelsea, yeah, I don't
every.
think anybody
Yeah,
saw this.
I think you had every right to put Tottenham and Chelsea there because they should have been there, all things considered. So I think Sparky's alluding to it here. I think Brighton was a very lovely surprise, and it was really nice to not see them implode when Potter left, because it really meant that they truly built something there.
Yeah,
that was bigger than just the manager. And I think when you have a culture like that, when you have players like that, and when you have the back room like that to put that into place, I think that's a really special thing. And I hope that this isn't one of those one-offs, and we'll kind of be stuck to seeing them in the 12th to 16th place for the next 7-8 years after this is all said and done. But that brings up an interesting point: is if you are a fan of a mid-table club like Leicester, would you take a Premier League title and an FA Cup, but a relegation in a span of 7 years?
like if I'm a Brighton fan,
if you're a Brighton
if
fan,
I'm a Leicester fan, dare I say?
Yeah.
Probably yes. I think so.
I think the highs and the emotions of winning the Premier League and then adding an FA Cup and then reaching Champions League quarterfinal, I think that's all worth. It's hard to gauge what is worth relegation, but if you're a fan of a mid-table club like that, there's only so many things you can get excited for, right? So I think with Brighton, I'm not saying I think that they're going to be Premier League title winners next year or the year after that, but I think you try and take as many of those little wins as you can to really enjoy and bask in it, so that when everything is said and done, you're not looking back and being really disappointed, of what could have been.
Yeah, I think, that is the highest of highs, especially when it was not expected. I mean, you start the season like, oh, maybe we'll do really good in top 10 or, oh, Champions League possible. And then you win the title. Yeah, I think you would take that if you are a fan who's kind of like used to being like in that mode. Because I actually saw like a post or a tweet or something like that about this, where they had, like within so many years from the title winner to getting relegated. And there was a comment from a Spurs fan saying, "Fuck, I'll take that." At this point, like if we just win one goddamn thing, and I'll take the relegation to offset it, kind of thing. And I think, like, for example, all joking aside, I think if you're like a fan of, like Tottenham or Arsenal or somebody like that, you probably don't take that deal. But I think if you're a fan of like Brentford or Fulham, you do take that deal, because it's like the highest of highs, and you can always be like, but we had that kind of a thing. So I do agree with Brighton, even though probably Arsenal will be a lot of picks for people. But I think we expect an improvement. Maybe this not this much of an improvement, and a title run in some ways, or a title choke, if you will. So you could give him that, but I do think Brighton, especially after the whole Parker thing, I really thought they were going to dip a little bit, and for them to not dip, start doing even better. Now the next challenge will be, last year they lost Cucurella and somebody else they were able to replace very easily. It's going to be interesting to see how many pieces they're willing to part with, and are they going to be able to replace him just as well?
Because that's the tough thing, is you don't want them, you don't want to turn them into another Southampton. They just end up being a selling club, and then in 5 years they're back in the Championship.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle with wanting to be a team that consistently competes and plays in Europe, is that you need the depth. And if you're a team, if you're one of those smaller teams that always has the Sharks come in and get your minnows, then it's difficult to try and keep up that consistency, because you're like, well, fuck, I don't want to bring up another guy because we're going to have to sell him next year for $40 million, because I know he's going to be fantastic, and we can't keep him here because he wants to move. So until the club is, you find like the group of guys that stay there for 5, 6, 7 years who want to build a legacy at that club and make them part of the conversation of top 6 of English football. You need that kind of commitment from players, and you need a board who's willing to sacrifice money, receiving money for these players, and to make this happen. And once you get that, then you can build a club where players want to stay. They want to compete in Europe. They want to be there and build there, rather than, oh yeah, this is my just next step before I go to United, before I go to Liverpool, before I go to Madrid, before I go to Barcelona.
I mean, I think it's hard for Brighton to be not that step, but I think it's a challenge for them now to, it's almost like they're at the gambler's table, right? And when you initially gamble small and get these players that, you know, their scouting department does extremely well on bringing in that, you know, nobody had heard of before. And it's like a $5 million gamble, $10 million gamble. And then it's not as big of a gamble, right? But now they're starting to, they will be moving these pieces for a lot more money. The temptation will be to now roll the dice on 50. Like, we turned 5 into 60. I wonder if we get a 15, can we turn it into 150 kind of a deal? And that's when the scouting department does it still, because you sometimes have scouting departments that this is their specialty. We were talking about the new, like the German sporting director that's, I'm assuming, will be announced shortly if it is, you know, happening. His specialty is more finding those guys that Brighton is finding, the $5 million, like the $8 million guys. It's a next step up. It's a totally different scouting to go now get the 20, the 25s that are one step away from being the $120 million guys. So do they make that step? I guess the biggest thing for Brighton. But yeah, I have to admit, I definitely did not see him continuing the trend once they lost their manager. It's almost like they kicked it into another gear. And I know towards the end of this, they finished rough. Really, they probably could have made the run that we did, that Everton game, which actually like kept Everton up really at the end of the day. That Everton game was the biggest. And I think if they win that, they don't really put that lineup out there and they might win. They might have been in the Champions League. I think that's the game that they kind of dropped. I don't know if maybe they had the eye on the Arsenal game and looked past Everton, just the way they played that game. But yeah, so before we go for this season, for us, what will you take away from this year? 5 years from now, I'm like, Mr. Dingus, do you remember that 22-23 season? Are you going to be like, fuck no? Or what are you going to remember out of this? What are you going to take from that year?
I think we'll all remember it because it'll be the year that, you know, we qualified for Europa League, and then the year after we won it in Dublin, kind of thing. So that's one thing to take away from it. The one thing that I would take away from this season is that's a good question. I can't think of a good answer right now. I'm going to be completely honest. I think this year has been so up and down, so weird. I think the one thing I'll take away is that fans will be awful no matter what. Whether you succeed, or whether you're doing poorly, the Facebook groups are always going to be pissed off about one thing or another. There we go. There's my cop-out answer for the day.
You know, that's a good one, actually. I didn't even think of that because I was thinking about this because I figured, you know, like it's something that we'll talk about a lot. I will definitely take the 7-0 probably from the season. It's going to be that year where we smashed them, even though we were not having a good year. It's probably going to remember it as, right? Like we smashed them 7-0. And we were not even having a good year. We were kind of like having a rough year kind of a deal. Just because it's United, just because it's historic. Just because I can still rub it into my brother months from now. It's, you know, good times. So I will definitely take that. But yes, I think it has been, especially since we're doing this, I think it has really shown the colors of a lot of fans, whether it is how much of a fan they are, whether it is their like attitude towards ownership or club, or sometimes even players and stuff like that, and not being able to kind of, yeah, it has been a learning experience in that sense. Now that you mentioned, I didn't think of it like that because I think we see it here and there. Like you see knee-jerk stuff, right? Like middle of a game and stuff like that. What is that pass and stuff like, you know, what the fuck? But I think we saw it in a long, bigger picture kind of thing overall. And hey, I will remember this year for the fundraiser we did. and I'll be like, hey, that was a shit year. And that's what I was talking about throughout the year too. Let's get something positive out of this freaking season kind of thing. Hey, I mean, that was rough in some spots as well. I learned a lot doing that, about people, about fundraising for one, but about people as well. Thanks to all those who contributed, by the way. I don't know if you guys caught it, but the last part of it was yesterday, where Anfield Shop, who was supportive of the whole thing throughout, by sending some items for the silent auction and stuff as well. They had 1 day of sales yesterday where all the proceeds went to the same good cause. So I think, yeah, I will basically take those away from this year, and then we'll see how it goes. We're still trying to plan on tonight. So I know it's Memorial Day, not a lot, everything's going to be out and about and doing things. So we might end up canceling the show tonight just for that, and then maybe perhaps like reschedule it. Because do we really want us more drunk than the usual levels on a live podcast is the question that comes to mind. But we'll definitely announce it shortly on the Facebook page throughout the day. Have a great week, everybody. The good news is it's over. Right now we can start, but then the bad news is here comes this. Get ready for this. Get ready for a month of this. There's a lot coming up for like programming announcements as well. So keep an eye on that for not only the rest of this month, with obviously all these vacations and stuff like that, but moving forward for like the summer and the new shows and stuff like that. So if you haven't already, run over to YouTube section channel and subscribe over there. If you have already done so, go to your freaking friends list, pick a dude, and go to him and say, hey, this is what you're doing today. You're going over here hitting subscribe. So if everybody gets somebody like that, do the pyramid scheme that we always do with Mr. Dingus over here, and then start following Dingus FC moving up. So, okay, by the way, before we part, are you promising us that
Yes.
the club is going to be
Yes.
ready? I don't care if you're getting married. I don't know what the heck you're doing. No excuses. Come new fall season, this club is going to be ready to hit.
Yeah, we're going to be fighting from non-league football all the way up to the Premier League. We're Luton Town, baby. We're good to go.
I'm looking forward to that. We're gonna get the football manager rolling. Dingus FC we're gonna take it all the way to the top. I'm just gonna be consulting more than anything else. But have a great week, everybody. We'll see you guys soon. Definitely Wednesday morning with the gang, and then perhaps maybe tonight with some drunk people. We'll see what happens. Take care.